Pack your bags, we're headed on a big old ride, with dreams of sunlit shores and the open skies, from the hills of Cyprus to where the world collides.
All right, today we're going on an adventure. Not literally, of course, but we are taking a deep dive with a couple of travel bloggers who explored the heart and soul of Thessaloniki.
Ooh, a fascinating city, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rich in history, buzzing with modern life, the perfect blend of old and new.
Definitely. Our guides for this trip are Rob and Mandy,
Okay.
a British couple who traded in life in Cardiff for a new life planned in Cyprus.
Wow.
They've got a knack for capturing those unexpected moments that make traveling so rewarding.
And that's exactly what we'll uncover as we retrace their steps through these blog posts from their 2014 trip.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're joining them for a virtual vacation.
I love it. So they started in Cyprus and decided to hop over to Thessaloniki for a quick getaway. Less than a 2-hour flight. That's closer than some train rides I've taken.
Wow.
They landed in this coastal town called Perea, where their hotel was.
Perea is lovely, a popular spot for a little respite by the aging.
It sounds idyllic, but hold on, because a massive storm had just blown through before they arrived.
Oh, no.
They found the shoreline littered with debris.
Oh, wow.
But instead of holing up in the hotel, they bundled up and went for a walk along the waterfront.
Now that speaks volumes about their adventurous spirit, doesn't it?
Right.
They embraced the unexpected,
Yeah.
the remnants of the storm, adding an almost mystical touch to their first impressions.
They even stumbled upon a restaurant called The Myth.
What are the chances?
Seriously.
It seems almost too perfect considering those stormy seas just outside. I wonder if they felt like characters in a Greek myth themselves.
Maybe. So after their adventurous walk, they settled in at The Myth and had hake,
So,
which is a kind of fish.
right.
And they topped it off by sharing some raki with honey and cinnamon.
Ah, classic Greek combination.
Really?
The warmth of the honey and spice against the raki. It's like a comforting hug on a blustery day.
I can imagine.
You know, it reminds me of how certain drinks become so ingrained in a culture.
Oh, yeah.
Like, can you imagine visiting Ireland and not having a sip of Guinness?
Right.
There's something about those local specialties that adds another dimension to the travel experience.
Totally.
They become these sensory memories that transport you back to a place and time.
It's like capturing the essence of a place in a glass, isn't it?
Exactly. It's not just about the taste. It's about the atmosphere, the history, the local customs, all swirled into one.
I like that. So the next day, fueled up on hake and raki, they hopped on a local bus and headed into the heart of Thessaloniki.
Right.
What were their first impressions?
Well, they headed straight for the waterfront, overlooking the Thermaic Gulf. And what struck them immediately were the statues.
Statues? Like how many statues are we talking about?
Enough to leave an impression.
Okay.
They described a mix of classical and modern sculptures, each telling a story, marking a moment in time.
Wow.
But there was one statue in particular that really captured their imagination.
Okay.
Alexander the Great on his horse, Bucephalus.
Wow, just picturing that powerful image, the conqueror gazing out over the city. It makes history feel so tangible.
It is, isn't it? Thessaloniki has witnessed so much history.
I bet.
And Alexander's legacy is woven into the fabric of the city.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how a single monument can evoke such a powerful connection to the past.
For sure. From the grandeur of Alexander the Great, they went on to explore another iconic landmark with a much darker past.
Oh.
I'm talking about the White Tower.
The White Tower is an imposing sight, isn't it?
Yeah.
A stark cylindrical structure overlooking the city. But what many visitors may not realize is that behind its picturesque facade lies a rather somber history.
Interesting.
It once served as a prison and even an execution site.
Wow.
A reminder that even the most beautiful destinations often harbor complex and layered pasts.
It's a reminder that history isn't always pretty, is it?
Yeah.
Makes you wonder about the stories those walls could tell. Scalers. It's easy to be swept away by the beauty of a place.
Right.
But it's important to remember the layers of history beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Speaking of delving deeper into history,
Okay.
Rob and Mandy decided to embark on something called the History of Thessaloniki Bus Tour.
That sounds incredibly efficient.
You know, right?
Like a crash course in the city's past. What did they discover on this historical joyride?
Well, one of the highlights was their visit to the Byzantine fortification walls.
Okay.
dating back to the 4th century.
Wow.
These walls have stood the test of time,
Yeah.
witnessing the rise and fall of empires, the ebb and flow of civilizations.
Wow.
Can you imagine the stories those ancient stones could tell?
It boggles the mind. From those ancient walls, they made their way to Anopoli, the upper town.
Which I've heard is like stepping back in time.
It is. Anopoli is a labyrinth of narrow cobblestone streets.
Wow.
Traditional houses in hidden courtyards,
Huh.
all clinging to the hillside.
Oh, wow.
It's like a living museum, a glimpse into Thessaloniki's soul.
And where there's a soul, there's bound to be good food. What culinary delights did Onopoli have in store for them?
Well, they stumbled upon a charming little taverna
Okay.
where the cook was grilling lamb and chicken right out in the open,
Oh,
filling the air with the most incredible aroma.
there's something so enticing about the sights and smells of open-air grilling, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
It just adds another layer of sensory experience to the whole meal.
It becomes a spectacle,
Right.
a performance.
Yeah.
You're not just a diner, you're part of the experience.
Right.
And speaking of experiences, theirs wasn't limited to ancient history and delicious food.
Okay.
They also encountered a rather unexpected side of Thessaloniki graffiti.
Graffiti. Now, that's not something you typically find in the travel brochures.
It's true. But as we've been saying, sometimes it's those unexpected details that give you a more authentic feel for a place.
Right.
You know,
So they were walking through this city steeped in history, surrounded by ancient ruins and grand monuments, and they kept encountering these vibrant splashes of street art.
exactly. It's almost like these two different worlds colliding, the
Yeah.
weight of the past juxtaposed with this raw contemporary expression.
It sounds like Thessaloniki isn't afraid to embrace its complexities.
Precisely. It's a city that honors its past while still allowing space for the present to make its mark.
It's a good reminder that there's always more than meets the eye, even in a place as seemingly well-trodden as Thessaloniki. So speaking of hidden gems, what else did Rob and Mandy uncover on their adventures? Anything that particularly resonated with you?
Well, aside from the intriguing juxtaposition of ancient history and modern graffiti,
Yeah.
I was particularly drawn to the description of Aristotle Square.
Oh, okay.
It's this vibrant public space right in the heart of the city with grand architecture and a lively atmosphere. They even mentioned street vendors and locals feeding the pigeons.
Oh, I love that. It's like a snapshot of everyday life, those little details that make a place feel so alive.
Exactly. And then there was their visit to the old shipping terminal.
Okay.
It's been repurposed into this cultural hub, now home to cafes, museums, and art galleries.
I love that idea of breathing new life into old spaces. It's like a city's way of evolving while still honoring its past.
Absolutely. And speaking of unexpected encounters, they also stumbled upon a children's karate display on the waterfront.
A karate display. Now, that's not something you see every day.
It just goes to show you never know what you'll encounter when you're open to the unexpected. Thessaloniki seems to be full of these little surprises, these moments that remind you to slow down and savor the journey.
Their whole trip sounds like a reminder to approach travel with a sense of curiosity and wonder.
Precisely. It's not just about checking off a list of must-see attractions, but about allowing yourself to get a little lost, to wander down those side streets and see where they lead. Who knows? You might just discover your own hidden gem, or witness a children's karate display, or find yourself sipping Rocky with honey and cinnamon after a storm, feeling like you've stepped into a myth.
This has been such a great deep dive, and it makes me want to grab my passport and book a flight. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up our virtual trip to Thessaloniki?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that travel is about more than just the destination. It's about opening yourself up to new experiences, embracing the unexpected, and finding those moments of connection that make each journey unique. And sometimes the most rewarding adventures are the ones that unfold when you least expect them.
Perfectly said. Well, that wraps up another deep dive. We'll see you next time for another adventure. Until then, happy travels, everyone.
You like flying where we never hide.
Out on the highway, chasing the